This is Seeding New Systems, Investing in Cultural and Creative Economies. It's so wonderful to see you all. Thank you for joining us. The chair was doing stretches too. Everything's got to move. My name's Megan McFadden. I am the Director of Strategy for Impact PHL. Impact PHL is cultivating the impact investing ecosystem in the greater Philadelphia region. We have a booth in the other room. If you're interested in learning more about our work, I'd love to tell you more about that. I also wear another hat, which is the co-creator of Culture Bank, alongside Mel and Penelope Douglas, who's here today. And we are reimagining investment in artists. And so really excited to be a part of this conversation. I'll let Mel introduce themselves.
Hello, everyone. I'm Mel. I'm a Culture Bank team member. I'm also the co-founder of Sweet Juice Fest, which is a grassroots artist-led music and arts festival in Philadelphia. We place communal joy and collective creativity at the center of our impact strategy. I'm also newly the steward of the Philly Sound Artist Fund, which is a donor-advised fund capitalized by a local family office that gives artists full decision-making power in investing in musicians and sound workers who are building infrastructure for collective power in Philly.
Okay, and we just want to get a very quick sense of who you all are. So you all will be getting to know each other and talking to each other, but can I have a quick sense of the room? Who in here identifies as an artist or a culture bearer or a creative of some sort? Okay, wonderful. Almost like half, maybe. Who is interested in bringing resources to artists, culture bearers, and okay, excellent, everyone, perfect. And whether that's time, money, energy, all of the assets that we're talking about. And who is just curious and is not really deeply engaged in this work, but thinks that it's deeply important and wants to be here to learn. Okay. Thank you. Thank you for being here. Okay, wonderful. So our goal really is we're not going to talk a lot. You all are going to talk to each other. So if we're doing our job, and I've already seen that you have already started, but what we're going to do today is we're going to start with a warm-up prompt and get you talking to your neighbor. We are then going to do a quick invitation to invite you to one way that we're thinking about investing in culture and creativity, one of many, many, many ways. And then we're going to do 2 breakout conversations and harvest back and hear what you all found together, and then we'll close from there. But really the goal is for you all to connect and meet each other and be able to find each other and look at the conference through the lens of art and culture and creativity. We'd be really excited if that was one outcome. Yeah, if you left with a new friend. So I will hand it over to Mel.
Okay, so we're going to start this one just as a partnered conversation. If there is an uneven number of folks in your group, feel free to make that a trio. Any amalgamation is great. We love creativity with numbers as well. Okay, so we want you to discuss, let's see if I can get here, the following question over the next 5 minutes, and I'm going to bring you guys back to share back what you talked about. Do you believe that culture and creativity are essential infrastructure for a thriving future? How or why? Maybe you're thinking about what even is culture? What is creativity?
Okay, wonderful. So before I get in, I'm just going to run through a couple of slides. And just really an invitation for just one way of thinking about. So you obviously just had probably maybe 100 ways of thinking about investment in arts and culture and creativity. I'm going to share one way that we're excited about thinking about it. But yeah, just acknowledge that there are many ways across places, across sectors, across asset classes that we can all be thinking about this. I also just want to name, and not to choose favorites, that there are many, in addition to you all here doing this work in the room, there are so many people doing this work at SOCAP, not to choose favorites, but I did call out a couple just to illuminate some of the ways that the humans here are doing this work. Adriana, I see you in the back. Adriana's like, hi, say hi to Adriana in the back. Adriana is with Kensington Corridor Trust in Philadelphia, where we work. They're utilizing collective ownership to direct investments on their corridor that preserve culture and affordability while building neighborhood power and wealth. Penelope Douglas, who I mentioned before, is the co-creator of Culture Bank, is stewarding a national design team hosted and curated by the Federal Reserve Bank of New York that is developing 3 pilots in 3 places of artist-led and centered community bond financing in rural New York, the Bronx, South Dallas, with applications ranging from affordable housing, an artist studio space, to rewilding the land, and also social prescribing within an urban community health center. And I see Otho as well. Laura Callanan, I don't know if Laura's in the room today, but Laura Callanan, many of you may know, started Upstart Collab, who launched an inclusive creative economy strategy with $15 million committed for US-based creative industries, including program-related investments from foundations, recoverable grants from donor-advised funds, and mission-related investments from endowed arts organizations. And then finally, Olivia Watkins. Is Olivia in here? Olivia Watkins is with the Black Farmer Fund. I'm really excited to learn from them. They're doing work in the Hudson Valley, where I'm currently based, and they developed a community investment fund to utilize blended capital and community governance to build wealth for Black agriculture community in the Northeast. And so those are just a few examples. Absolutely look around for some other examples of people doing this work. So very quickly, I'll just give you one way, just an invitation of one way that we're thinking about it is that, and it sounds like many of you are already thinking about this too, this is pretty simple, but we believe the system change starts at the roots, that culture that lives at the roots, and that artists are one of many core actors that help to cultivate culture. We deeply agree with our dear friend Daryl Ratcliffe. Does anybody know Daryl in Dallas with Ash Studios? No? I hope someday you all get to meet him. Daryl's with Ash Studios. He said that artists should not just be utilized for beautification, but they should be utilized as problem solvers, woven into every aspect of our lives. Daryl Ratcliffe with his partner Fred Villanueva in South Dallas are creating an artist and doctor owned and led community health center where they're developing affordable housing, studio space, and a whole person health and health care center for the community there in South Dallas. So their work is wonderful. All the reasons we are still living in this sort of, I hate to say it, the starving artist trope. Capital is not flowing to artists in the way that we know that it could and should to do the deep work that is necessary for cultivating culture. These are just some of those ways in which that capital does not traditionally flow. But we know that artists are actually nourishing communities, and we're seeing great impacts in those communities. And so everything from decrease in isolation to depression to increasing in belonging and social cohesion. If any of you are familiar with the One Nation, One Project initiative recently, they just came out with a great report that is really wonderful to look at and that can highlight some of the stats that came out of that work. So what we imagine alongside you all as the ways that you're imagining is that we can form a new paradigm in which artists are highly valued for the central actors that they are in their communities in being able to interpret what communities need and want to translate values and vision and to bring the resources to communities that they need. We imagine this coming with new forms of investment, so actually co-designing investment vehicles with artists that are responsive to those artists and those communities' needs, and that this will bring a new cultural paradigm in which culture is not just a nice to have, but we are actually being responsive and creating the cultures that we need for our future, our thriving future together. So I'm going to pass it back to Mel for our next breakout.
Okay, so far we've talked a little bit about how culture is foundational to every community, hopefully, how artists and creatives are cultivating those cultures, and how investment can either nourish or neglect that root system. So we want to shift from these ideas to connection and conversation among you all. We're going to do 2 conversations to think about the cultural landscape that we're living in today and the one that we want to intentionally grow. So obviously culture can be defined in numerous ways. Some of the ways I'm thinking about it are the shared stories, the habits, the values that connect us and define how we live together. It's always being shaped by what we choose to fund or celebrate or participate in through media, technology, education, community practices, numerous forces. So we're just gonna pause to notice the present culture. You can think about this really at any scale. You'll be discussing with your group. Obviously, it's a loud room. We have so many people, which is amazing. So if you need to break off into smaller pairs or trios, that's great too. But you can think about this at the level of our country, even our globe if you desire, your city, your organization, or really any community where you feel a sense of belonging and responsibility. No, well, I really appreciated your conversation about sort of identity culture and this thing of like, I am this thing rather than I identify with this thing, or I I have this thing rather than I do this thing. And there was another conversation over here that I heard about this culture of greed and fear. I think it was Jeff Richards was talking about this culture of greed. And these things feel really related in my mind because we're all about sort of like aggregating as a way to identify ourselves rather than being in actual connection and community with each other. In the anarchist community, we talk about like the right kind of is onto something with this criticism of identity politics because yes, it's so important to, again, like bring our traditions and our various cultures into the present, but just because we come from that same thing, we're not actually going to connect unless we're doing the thing together. It's not enough to just identify that way, right? You actually have to like be and do and exist, and that's what creativity is all about. Okay, we're going to move on to the second discussion. It's going to be a little shorter this time because you all had such rich ideas. So this next batch of questions is about our own agency. Every investment, time, money, and attention shapes culture. So we want you to reflect on what you're seeding or dreaming of seeding in your own place. And think about this from your own role. So whether you're an artist, a funder, an entrepreneur, an organizer, or anything else, work with your circle to examine these questions on that second sheet of white paper and see what connections you might find in your group or otherwise. And then we'll have a chance to share back. Yes, yeah. Our good friend Tayyib Smith said at an event that Culture Bank hosted recently that art is the one thing where you can feel empathy without anybody else in the room. And so imagine what we can do if artists are bringing people together to draw that empathy out of us, what we can do as a team. And I think about, again, so many ways to define art, so many ways to define culture, but I think about artists as being so primed to be able to envision the future. I mean, their whole job really is to create new worlds. And then culture bearers as people that can really help us, or our friend over here, bring forward these traditions that, a lot of these solutions, like we don't need to reinvent. Many people, many of our indigenous contemporaries, many of our elders, our ancestors came up with these solutions. And so the people that have that information are all around us, but it's about valuing that knowledge.
There's so much imagination in the room, and that we talk about that often, that there's no shortage of capital, there's a shortage of imagination, but there was plenty of it in this room, so we're so excited. I also heard one group talk about science and scientists, and we've been talking about that too, as what if we were to invest in culture and artists the way that we invest in science and scientists. So culture as a field of knowledge, as a field of experimentation, intervention, and artists as researchers and innovators and healers, an investment with that are bold and have a long-term perspective, and are really thinking about, the way that systems could change, thanks to Penelope.